All right, we are back. This time without music. Um, Let me share this on Twitter so maybe someone might appear. I don't think that's going to be the case, but and we are back. Hello, everybody. Time for some more sense making. So, as I'm a bit out of focus, I want to make clear again that you can join the conversation by going to this URL chat.nmr.io. That's basically an open Zoom call that you can join, and we might have a discussion. The topic is broadly Game B. And why am I doing this? At the risk of being boring, at the risk of wasting my time, because the whole concept of Game B is that we need to create a sort of distributed intelligence, and one in which everyone is encouraged to participate. And so this is, at the moment, the way I feel is might be the most promising way I can participate. I'm not sure about that. If you have an idea about how I might participate better, let me know. Um, I do want to share my thoughts around this at the moment. So there are a few layers in my life right now, and one is built or relies on the lower layer. So the lowest layer is my real life, if you will, my family and work, right? This is like the foundation, the thing that I'm focusing most of my time on right now. I have a 4-month-old son, and I'm trying to be present in his life and obviously in the life of my wife. Then there is a little bit of a sense-making group around this Game B topic. A couple of people with whom I have regular, or I try to have regular calls that are not for a broader audience, and now there's this. And so I'm trying to move to the higher level if the lower levels feel okay, they feel right, in order not to create a dynamic where kind of the upper levels debase the substrate, to use Daniel Schmachterberger's concept. Otherwise, the whole enterprise is not sustainable. And so here I am. I have a moment to talk to the public. By the way, something else I would like to mention is I'm a web engineer. Yeah, I'm software engineer generically, but I've been focusing on web technologies in the last few years, and so I also try to participate in that way. Though I would say that doesn't exhaust my interests or my identity. I'm very interested, have always been in psychology, and now kind of this systems thinking perspective kind of integrates all my interests in a good way. You know, like there are technologies and there are psychotechnologies, there are, you know, technological systems, and then there are human systems, and within this Game B space we are trying to find a way to dance with these systems while being within them, being part of them, being systems, and try to survive, I guess, and maybe thrive. as a civilization, including our ecosystem, obviously. And so I find this very interesting because it is a multi-layered problem. There is the individual problem, right? Like you yourself have to sort yourself out, to use a Petersonian concept, which in a way means you have to bring many parts of yourself into alignment, which is what Jordan Hall would call coherence, right? So you need to reach coherence at an individual level, but then there are your relationships and your groups, the groups you're part of, the community, and then there are these larger groups, basically ending up with humanity, animals, the ecosystem as a whole. And I think Daniel Schmachtenberger explains really well how we are not going to survive, or the system is not going to survive if we don't find kind of an equilibrium that is good for the whole. Because especially if we talk about human systems, if you have these exponential technologies and competition, then, well, it's a, as Daniel Schmachtenberger would call it, it's a self-terminating game. Anyway, so I'm kind of rambling, and interestingly, that's actually part of the deal, because this is something that Jordan Hall explains very well. We need to build this decentralized, this collective intelligence, which cannot be founded on formal systems, because formal systems are complicated systems, just like centralized systems are, and we need to build a truly complex system in order to deal with the complexity of the world. And as long as we just keep following formal structures and propositional knowing, we are not going to be able to have the sense making and the discernment that we really need to solve the problems that we have. So, to go beyond formal systems and the concepts we have in our mind, we need to basically be present, and what Jordan Hall calls interliminality. We need to become comfortable with, I guess, the weird, with the thing that's outside of pure logic and reasoning. We need to be able to access other ways of knowing, what Vervaeke would call, for example, among others, participatory knowing. And I guess it's a way of knowing that you can only perform as you participate, like a dance. That's one of the metaphors that keep popping up, or like a jazz club that's a jazz band that's improvising. How do they do that? They do it while they participate. They certainly don't have concepts and propositions about what they are doing. They are attuned to the process as it's happening, and part of the process. If you remove the individual players, there is no music anymore. So as you participate, you are part of the phenomenon, and so what you do shapes it, and as you participate in it and you are attuned, that's exactly, if I understand it correctly, that is your participatory knowing. So it's a knowing that makes you part of something bigger than you. I guess, again, like what Vervaeke would call the transjective. And so, in a sense, I am winging it. That has a bad connotation, But within this scene, I think there is an aspect of that's actually what we need. Winging it is to ride the wave of complexity as it emerges, as it, uh, as it passes through you, and you're part of it somehow. And so you need to be attuned to what's going on with all the ways of knowing that you have, with all of your body, with the whole stack, and not just with your beliefs and narrow reason. And me, myself, putting myself out there like this, kind of improvising a talk, that's part of it. That's a, in a sense, that's a training, and it's doing it. And also it is an invitation to participate. Because if I just someone, I'm not one of those experts, can do it and join, then so can you. And you can do it either on this channel, just using this link, or you can do it with friends, within the relationships that are important to you. That might be the hardest. And you might do it in many different ways, such as I am. I do hope I'm online. I do hope that I'm live and it's working and people can hear me. I can look at this, it says that there are like 2 people watching. One would be me, and so there is someone else. Hi there. And here I am. I have this image of the jazz band in my mind, and I think in an interview Jordan Hall talks about how, in a sense, even that metaphor is limited because it is something that transcends that, because it's outside of any specific scope. Someone just wrote me that it's live, so that's fine. All right, I was thrown off. There is an aspect, there is a perspective that I think only I am interested in contributing to this conversation, which is the active imagination aspect. I've talked about it to friends, and I think it's relevant. I think it's important, and I would like to have a conversation about that topic with the with the leading figures within this movement, and so let me talk a bit about that. Active imagination is this process through which you consciously connect to your imagination, which basically is a manifestation of your unconscious. So it's a way of connecting to your unconscious. Let's leave the active part last. So what, how do you start this? You basically allow your imagination to become active, and then you start to consciously engage with it. That's the idea. So I might do a demonstration. Let's see. So I see myself dancing on a tightrope. And as I do this, I'm asking myself, where is this going? Where is this tightrope going? What am I doing here? Where am I going? And I see fog below me and in front of me. And the atmosphere is a bit game-like I'm on a Minecraft tightrope. So I'm walking along this now series of cubes within the Minecraft world. And I end up on a little Minecraft island in the sky. And suddenly I realize this is coming from a PewDiePie video. And at this point, like, I kind of see like an overlapping now between PewDiePie and Jordan Hall. Like there is something there. There is I'm using one as a frame for the other. There, I see a similarity there. I see perhaps the way in which they are leading figures. They are examples. And then I see somehow a shining, like a halo behind them. And basically I see the this is embarrassing. I see the thing that's here, basically, something like that. Mandala. And I've had that a few times in the past, like a person like appearing to me in this kind of shiny way. It's like almost like an icon, like a saint, like kind of like revealing something deeper, or like maybe mapping onto some kind of archetype within me. And those have been almost spiritual experiences in the sense of being very impactful. One of those times it was Jordan Peterson. I think I was listening to something by him a couple of years ago. I was basically listening to everything that he was putting out, and there was certain episode where I was then walking through the street and having this image of him, like with these kinds of, like it was almost a religious icon. And there is an aspect now of these three people which they have in common, which is a certain relationship with truth. A certain, maybe what Wendy called it in our last live stream, like aim, like a it doesn't feel quite right, but like a channeling. This work can be taken in different ways. I want to mean it just in a sense of like humility, of not standing between the people who are listening to you and whatever the truth is. It doesn't need to be some kind of deep spiritual truth. It's more about the attitude. And as weird as it sounds that PewDiePie is appearing, he has had that. I mean, he has this persona of being, you know, the guy who makes jokes and so on, but he also has those moments where, okay, now it's time to tell the truth. And I think those are as significant as the whole, making fun of things. Uncomfortably, they are all white male. And probably there is, like an echo, obviously, of Jesus Christ, the figure, like similarity just in terms of physiognomy. And so I guess this is all the ways certain things within me are being activated by people, by people that I've never met, that are online. And this makes me think of Carl Jung talking about how about projection, about how projection can be a very dangerous feature. How, I don't know, Adolf Hitler also was a personality that a whole nation was able to project these kind of archetypes on, and the way it mobilized and so, like, I think what we are getting at here is meaning, how these deeper psychological patterns feel very meaningful, and therefore they move to action. And now it's Vervaeke that comes in saying that no part of your psyche is the divine part of your psyche. That each of them can both help you make sense of the world and help you bullshit the world. All right. I think the last part of this was not really active imagination. I was just following my train of thought. The beginning part of it was more like what one would typically characterize as active imagination. It's like you can also do it more more intentionally with a question, with a problem. You ask yourself a question and then you allow yourself to drop, or basically you allow your fantasy to wake up. And that's the interesting thing. I think that's the key point, that fantasy is not random. Something comes up and you didn't make it consciously, it just came up. But it's not noise, it has certain patterns, it has certain regularities, it has certain laws. So it's certainly a kind of information that arises there, and it's an information that was not generated through logical inference. It's kind of it's your unconscious talking to you, and doesn't mean that there is the pure truth in there. It's just that there is way more information available than one usually tends to use, especially in our Western world where we are very left brain. And this is my way of thinking about it, that the left brain is where language is, where all the logical inference mechanisms are, the linear analytical thinking. But then we still have half of a brain left unused, and I think active imagination is the way to connect there. Maybe more generally speaking, using your intuition. And I think that active imagination is a way to boost that, to make it way more vivid, way more rich than we are used to. And perhaps one should add movements to that, and singing and chanting, and all sorts of things, and rituals, processions, to kind of integrate that half of your brain. And remember, we are aiming at coherence, right? And coherence, I think, is a synonym for integration. And so if we want to be fully coherent or integrated, we need to integrate half of our brain. And so I think there, as a Western culture, we are surely lacking. And a lot of it has to do with shame, it has to do with fear of the weird, because again, like, if you're not following a strictly linear train of thought, some weird stuff might come up. You know, I just compared PewDiePie to Jesus Christ. That's an example of the weird. And I think we need to learn to become comfortable with that, because in it there is information, there is signal. And here relevant becomes Jordan Hall's rule omega of trying to extract what wants to be heard. And I just had an intuition, I'm not sure that that's correct, but there is a certain, I'm wondering now whether that's in a way related to Jordan Peterson's principle, which I don't think he often talks about in such technical terms, but if you read his Maps of Meanings book or watch his lecture, like the actual lecture about Maps of Meaning, he talks about the anomaly. So that's actually quite interesting. So the idea is you have a map of the world, and obviously it's imperfect, and so it will fit most of the world, and as long as it fits, you know where to go. But then, you know, at the margins things don't fit, and that's where the anomaly comes up. And the anomaly is the thing that is ambivalent, right? It's that thing that you don't know if it's both promising and threatening. And so I guess what Jordan Peterson would call the deepest truth about religions, about the Judeo-Christian religion, is the discovery that the right way to relate to that is to pay attention to it and tell the truth about it. So you don't ignore the anomaly, otherwise it becomes a dragon. And then you enter into chaos, right? You like your map is burned completely. The alternative, the right alternative, is you look at it. So this, what Jordan Hall would call infinitesimal courage, right? You react to it with curiosity, and then you don't lie about it, you tell the truth about it. And so now, what I was intuiting is that there might, I'm wondering whether there is some relationship between that and rule omega. And the first way this appeared in my mind is actually as kind of like a duality. And I'm not sure about it because, why would it be a duality? Because paying attention to the anomaly is to look at the thing that doesn't fit, right? And rule omega is more something like, okay, there's a mess here, and we're trying to extract the signal out of it. I don't know. I might be completely off there. So I invoke rule omega, please find the signal in what I just put out there. So I see that my Zoom call has died because no one joined. Let me actually recreate it so that if someone wants to join, you can. By the way, if you want to join, it's simple. There is this link here. And once I re-establish the Zoom call, which is now open, you can just join and have a conversation with me. And I want, as long as I'm not overflown by spammers, I don't know, I want to keep this open as a possibility. So I see that 3 people are currently live. One is me, and there are 2 other people. So, hi there. If you think that there is something I should dive into, then please let me know. All right. There is a question that's coming up that would be a nice way to invoke the participation of the game be seen, which is, okay, what we can do together is sense making, right? We can try to answer questions by having these open conversations with each other. And so an interesting question that we could ask is, what are the questions that we should ask in general? Or what are the questions that we should try to answer? What is interesting? What should we explore? All right, I see someone commented, hi Simply Beth. Yeah, truly it has been a long time. A lot has happened meanwhile, so, but I'm happy you're watching. All right. Yeah, perhaps for the newcomers here, I've been, like this channel, I've been taking a break from it the last half year or so. Mainly because I was kind of preparing mentally for the arrival of my baby. And so I was kind of slowly getting rid of things, Facebook account, Twitter account, which I reopened, but Instagram is gone as well. And so maybe I'm back. I don't know. I don't want to make a promise out of this. I'm just kind of taking it one step at a time, seeing what feels good, what feels right. So anyway, what kind of sense making should we do? For sure, one key criterion has to be that it has to involve people. The topic has to really interest you. You have to really be like gripped by it. Yeah, okay, this is something that's kind of missing in game B space. Actual sense making around difficult, contentious topics. Like if we think of game B as like something like the post intellectual dark web, and I'm not talking about the actual game B, I'm talking about the scene. If we look at this as the post intellectual dark web, then yes, there has been progress in terms of the way people within this scene are communicating. But there is less focus on the topics that people in the intellectual dark web had the courage to talk about in the first place. So all the contentious issues such as politics, mainly politics. And I personally don't really have an interest of going into that, but I do feel that game B scene hasn't grown up fully unless it's capable of addressing those topics too. Let's name some names, right? Like it's in the air anyway. Sex and gender, race and IQ, even things that are dear to the alt-right. What else? The whole feminism and its impact, its influence on campus culture, whatever. I don't know. All the things that these personalities from the intellectual dark web were fearlessly addressing. I don't see much of that happening in game B space. What I see more happening in this scene is, again, a willingness to focus more on the way we show up and that kind of an openness to allow the process to do the talking somehow. Dropping the agenda, dropping the clash of ideas frame, the debate frame. So this focus on win-win, and also again rule omega, right? Trying to find the signal in each perspective. So this is progress. What I haven't seen much is actually, on one hand, people actually practicing that. I mean, I see the usual suspects, the big personalities. But I would like to see more people who are kind of orbiting around this, like actually doing that more. And then really like people stepping up and talking about the difficult issues. I'm not sure that I'm fully interested in those topics. Even during the Jordan Peterson wave, his remarks about the postmodernism and college campuses and so on were not that interesting to me. I mean, I have to admit there is also a sense of fear related to it. Of again, this fear of saying the thing that will end me, my career, my reputation. I don't know, this thing that defines what is it? The key idea of the dark the dark forest theory of the internet, right? This idea that nice people are not showing up because they are afraid of, you know, basically their lives being destroyed by the mob. And so that's pretty much an unsolved problem. And I think this scene is part of the answer, because it's not enough to just have the courage to talk about those issues. There is also a quality of engaging with the issues that is needed if we want to make progress on them. And I think that the key insight there is that these issues are so complex that no individual will be able to hold them completely. And therefore, that's why we need this kind of open, agendaless perspective, where we are basically like trying to generate as many of these interactions as possible, where someone says, like, tries to communicate their hunch, and then people pick up on information that was maybe only partially expressed. Which again leads us to the thing that we need to be able to be comfortable with this not knowing, with this more intuition based, which is not everything, but we need to be able to step into that as well. So I think I'm going to end this here. For the few people who listen to this until the end, thank you. And I hope to hear some feedback from you, or to see you, even better, to see you step up and participate in one way or another. I really recommend finding someone who you find interesting and actually starting some kind of regular practice of talking to them. And you will have your own entertainment that's also actually quite meaningful. Maybe some of the meaningful things you can do. So I recommend that. That's it for today. I'm off. And I don't want to make a promise out of this, I might be live streaming soon again. All right. Bye.